Welcome back, Crackle Addicts. I'm Lupinefiasco. This is Daily Fab Gameplay, and if you want to crush your ProQuest this weekend, then I have one last Aurora deck tech for you. You can find a Fabry link to the deck list I'll be talking about in the video description below. You'll also find a link to my Patreon. Subscribers at the Arc Lightning tier and higher will get access to my matchup guides for this deck and all my decks forever. Want to tighten it and optimize your gameplay in real life? Use my affiliate link in the video description to buy your very own Codex journal, and be sure to use code LUPINE10, that's LUPINE10, at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Finally, Daily Fab Gameplay is brought to you in part by Hemel from the Bazaar. It's never been more affordable to play in the flesh and blood. Players have been buying the cards they need from Hemel for years. I started shopping from him in 2023 and have never found a better deal. The Bazaar's prices are the lowest for singles, full sets, and class sets, including new releases. Pre-order High Seas set bundles now, and pre-order singles after spoiler season ends. Pre-orders are available for international shipping or for in-person pickup at US Nationals in Vegas. Message Hemel on Blue Sky, Discord, email, or Twitter to see what he can do for you. Now, let's talk about the last Aurora deck tech you'll ever need. If you're watching this video, then I assume you care very much about being competitive in the classic constructed format, which means that I don't need to waste time explaining what Aurora does or why she's good. We've had the hero for 7 months. We all know why she's very, very good. I am going to give you a brief overview of some of the interesting choices within this deck, some of the 2-ofs and the 1-ofs, as well as detail the latest changes I've made since my last Aurora deck tech. They aren't very extensive, but they are worth mentioning in a post-Enigma world. So first of all, I have come to the conclusion, as I think many people have, that in a slower meta, such as the one we're in now, Fiendal Spring Tunic is easily the best piece of chest equipment you can play, compared to something like Dyadic Carapace, which is much better in a faster format. But Spring Tunic is really good in the Aurora Mirror, letting you pay for AB1 on Lightning Greaves to play around any sort of Sigil of Suffering, Channel Lightning Valley turn. It can play into Jarl, giving you Frostbite. It can play into Florian, blocking with Face Purgatory, allowing you to activate the Tunic to make a resource and pitch the red in your hand to activate Aurora, make an Embodiment of Lightning, and mitigate the damage dealt by Face Purgatory. It lets you send a Starfall attack on a Burn-Up turn, an Arc Lightning turn, or a Channel Lightning Valley turn. So in general, Tunic is just very, very good. Aurora is the fastest aggro deck in the format. She generally does not need to be blocking with Dyadic Carapace, which lets her get extra offensive value out of the Tunic. We still have Dyadic Carapace in the sideboard, but it is coming in much less frequently than I was bringing it in earlier in the format. Talking about some of our 2-ofs and 1-ofs, we have 2 copies of Arcanic Shockwave, 2 copies of Lightning Surge, 2 copies of Second Strike, and 1 copy of Scar for a Scar. Why are we playing so many 2-ofs and even a 1-of as opposed to 3-ofs of our better cards? The answer is that none of these are necessarily our better cards, but they are all situationally good, and we want to make sure that we are adaptable in all of those situations. Scar for a Scar is very good if we are lower on life than our opponent, but being the best aggro deck in the format means that we probably aren't lower on life than our opponent most of the time. So what if we cut Scar for a Scar and made it Second Strike? Well, Second Strike only has +1 power and go again if we've dealt damage this turn, and there are a number of very defensive decks in the format. Post-Enigma, there was Enigma, pre-Enigma's ban, that mitigate arcane damage with AB1, or play defense reactions that can cover up something like Entwine Lightning with Go Again, Lightning Surge with Go Again, Ravenous Rabble for 4, that all combine to make Second Strike not a reliable Go Again effect. We have 2 copies of Second Strike compared to 1 copy of Scar for a Scar, because Second Strike is a lightning attack. It can fuse with Entwine Lightning, Arcanic Shockwave, and Flicker Wisp. It also gives us something to do if we have 4 reds in hand that do not convert well on offense or defense, We can play Second Strike, then pitch 2 reds into Aurora to make an embodiment of lightning. So we are playing 2 copies of Second Strike compared to 1 copy of Scar for a Scar, but we aren't as reliant on the ability of Second Strike as we once were, as decks have adjusted to beat Aurora. We have Lightning Surge, which is a 4-power lightning attack that very often has Go Again when played from Arsenal. Why do we only have 2 copies of Lightning Surge? Well, because it needs to come from Arsenal to have Go Again. So at any time that you have 2 Lightning Surges in the same hand, your hand is worse for having those cards. They don't have natural Go Again, they only block for 2. So it isn't a card that we want to see 2 of in a hand compared to something like Flittering Charge, which more often has Go Again, or Gone in a Flash, which at least blocks for 3. Which brings us to Arcanic Shockwave. Why do we only have 2 copies of a card with 4 power and can block for 3? It does not have Go Again, but neither do other attacks in our deck. The answer is that it doesn't have Go Again. It isn't a lightning card, and it does enable some powerful things. You have the ability to make Arcanic Shockwave a 1-card 5 when you have a lightning card in your hand. A 2-card hand of Arcanic Shockwave and Lightning Surge is 5 damage and a very good arsenal. A 2-card hand of Arcanic Shockwave and Burn Up Shock is a 1-card 5 with a very good arsenal. Anytime you have Embodiment of Lightning, Arcanic Shockwave is often a 1-card 5 with Go Again that can potentially enable your Second Strike. So there are very good reasons to play Arcanic Shockwave. The fact that it blocks for 3 means that it pairs very well with Electromagnetic Somersault, and in any hand where you don't have the ability to send everything on offense, it does get you good block value. But compared to a card like Gone in a Flash, which has 4 power, 3 block, is lightning for fusing and for activating Aurora, and also combos with Electrostatic Discharge, or Flittering Charge, which has 4 power and very often gets Go Again, or Exude Confidence, which has 4 power and a devastating effect against decks playing a lot of defense reactions. Arcanic Shockwave just doesn't have the juice that we need from a 3 of in our deck. Ultimately, these changes are to make space for Skyward Serenade and Skizzik. I think these 2 cards together are both very good. Skizzik does have the downside of being the worst card in your deck when you draw it, but you can always pitch it into your sword. At worst, it is a 3 block. You can use your Snapdragon Scalers or an Embodiment of Lightning to give it 4 power and Go Again. And the price of playing Skyward Serenade, which is very, very good, very modal in different situations. The more that I play with Skyward Serenade, the more that I realize that Embodiment Skizzik are generally not the best modes. You can usually get more out of your Serenade. The price of Serenade is Skizzik, and I have been impressed enough with Skyward Serenade that that is a cost I'm willing to pay. But like I said, you've been playing Aurora for 7 months. None of the cards in this 60 are going to jump out at you as anything spicy. These are the cards that you would expect to see in Aurora, just perhaps not in the ratios that you were used to seeing them in. One 2 of I didn't talk about is Sink Below. Card is great. All defense reactions are great in Aurora, being 0 for 4s that don't use your action point, but compared to Sigil of Suffering, which is insane in Aurora, often a 1-card 5 that is a 1-card 8 when combined with Channel Lightning Valley, Sink Below just doesn't have that same juice, and we could play with 3 copies of Sink Below and 2 copies of Shelter from the Storm, but in a meta where Aurora is the best aggro deck, I do think Shelter has its uses. There are times when Aurora really needs to deal arcane damage, and if you can prevent her from doing it and still have floating prevention, that is a massive blowout. We're talking our Arc Lightning, Channel Lightning turns, Burn Up Shock, Channel Lightning turns, really anything with Channel Lightning Valley, where Aurora really needs to deal 1 point of arcane damage to draw a card or turn on Second Strike. Shelter from the Storm is insane in those situations. Moving down to the sideboard, we will again really not see anything spicy. I just talked about Shelter from the Storm. This could be 2 copies of Shelter in the main deck and 3 copies of Sink Below in the side, but I do think that in a world with Aurora in it, and in a post-Aurora world, if Syndra and Arachne Marionette or Arachne Slip Through the Cracks pick up in popularity, then Shelter still stays very good for being able to play around Flicker Knives. We do have 3 copies of Flicker Wisp. Jumping ahead to what has changed from the last deck tech I put out, this is a change. Adding the 3rd copy of Flicker. This is to play around the rising number of Scepter of Pain Florian and just Jarl generally. Particularly against Scepter of Pain Florian, colloquially known as Stack Florian, because he stacks so many rune chants and does not often attack. He's choosing instead to spend 3 or 4 turns stacking rune chants and then sending Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath for 9 physical and 10 to 20 arcane, or Felling of the Crown plus 10 arcane, or Plow Under plus 10 arcane. We need to play 3 copies of Flicker Wisp because of all of the defense reactions that Florian runs. We cannot kill Florian with physical damage. If you do not combo Florian with Arc Lightning Flicker Wisp at least once in a game, you will not win that game. It is deterministic that you will lose to a stack Florian because he is playing 15 4 blocks and 21 defense reactions. There's some overlap there, but you just will not get through with physical damage. You need to deal arcane damage that Florian cannot block, and even then you probably need to do it multiple times, which is why we're playing with 3 Flicker Wisps. Any Arc Lightning that you play on its own could be good, could get some damage through, but you really need to do Arc Lightning plus Flicker Wisp, and you need to do it multiple times. So the 3rd Flicker is just to increase the probability of seeing your Arc Flicker turns. Written in the Stars is nothing new. Aether Ironweave and Crown of Dominion are also concessions to Florian, Jarl, Teklavassin, Decimator Great Axe warriors that you may be able to scout out before the game starts. You need to deal arcane damage. You need to be able to kill these very defensive decks by dealing arcane damage, which they are much less able to block well. So Aether Ironweave plus Crown of Dominion is the Bozo combo that many of you are familiar with. This is what originally put Aurora on the map when Rosetta released. The fact that you can play Flicker Wisp, fuse it with Arc Lightning, then play Arc Lightning, then send an attack for 4 go again, break the chain to then activate Aether Ironweave, which will generate 2 resources and shoot your opponent for 2 arcane. Use those 2 resources to break the gold created by Crown of Dominion, which draws you a card and shoots your opponent for 2 arcane. Then either be able to attack with the card that you just drew for 4, hopefully with go again to deal 2 arcane, or pitch to Starfall at minimum to deal 2 damage and 2 arcane. It means that the Ironweave Crown combo is getting you at least 8 points of damage that you would not have gotten with Fyrndal Spring Tunic and Crown of Providence, Balance of Justice, or Fate's Purgatory. So the 3 changes I've made to the Aurora deck since my last update are Crown of Dominion, Aether Ironweave, and Flicker Wisp. This is to play around Florian, Jarl, and slow decks in general. Let's talk briefly about Jarl. I've mentioned him a few times, but spent a lot more time talking about the interaction between Arc Flicker and Florian. Arc Flicker is also relatively necessary to beat Count Your Blessings Jarl. You don't need it to line up the same way. You don't need to fire off 2 or 3 Arc Flickers to kill a CYB Jarl. You definitely want 1 to use your combo equipment. But for the most part, you have more time than a Stack Florian is going to give you. Stack Florian games are going to end on average between 10 and 12 turns. Count Your Blessings Jarl games will end at minimum turn 15. So you have more time to put the combo together, you have more time to fire off an Arc Lightning so that you can do a 5-card 20, 5-card 25, knowing that you will eventually pitch deck your way into an Arc Flicker with your combo equipment. But speaking about mid-range Jarl, this is a matchup that I find is very, very hard for Aurora to win. This is the disruptive Guardian that we all know, with an added layer of forced discard from Frostfang, taxes from Winter's Bite or Channeling Frigid, and the ability to break your Grasp of the Arknight with Crumble to Eternity plus Frozen to Death, or Crumble to Eternity that then lets Unforgetting Unforgiving tutor a Mangle, which lets them send the Mangle for 10 with Dominate. to break your grasp and make your Arc Flicker combo much worse because you can no longer pitch a blue into Grasp plus Starfall. So the Crown of Dominion, either Ironweave combo, just makes that matchup at all winnable. You can do it with Balance of Justice and Spring Tunic, but the fact that Jarl, uniquely among Guardians, punishes you for blocking with armor means that the value you are getting by blocking with Balance of Justice is very minimal compared to the value you get by high rolling an Arc Flicker combo on a turn where Jarl wasn't able to disrupt you. So all of this is to say that Dominion Ironweave 3rd Flicker Wisp has just felt very necessary. But coming back to our main point, Aurora is 7 months old. She is the dominant force in the meta. You all know what Aurora does at this point. I'm not going to spend too much time harping on this combo that you're all aware of. I'm explaining more why do we need to bring it in for this last week of ProQuest. And the answer is there are more Jarls and Florians and Decimator Great Axe Warriors than there were when Enigma existed, which means that we need to free up some space to deal with those heroes. This brings us to the final part of this kind of overview on a deck that you're all familiar with, which is, let's talk about the cards that I cut to make space for the Ironweave Dominion Flicker Wisp. That would be Zap Clappers, Scar for a Scar, and Static Shock. Zap Clappers is a card that really impressed me during Pro Tour London, and if I thought that we were still in a meta where we were playing against aggressive heroes predominantly, I would keep Zap Clappers in my deck. But Zap Clappers doesn't fill a role that we need filled compared to Dominion Ironweave Flicker Wisp. The Bozo combo plus the 3rd Flicker Wisp is necessary to beat Florian and Jarl. Zap Clappers are not necessary to beat Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, Syndra, Phi, other Auroras. We have Grasp of the Arknight, which blocks for 3, which can create a rune chant on turn 1, and which can combo off with a blue or maybe a yellow on an Arc Lightning turn. So where the Bozo package does fill a need that we need filled, Zap Clappers does not, which is why I cut it. The same goes for Scar for a Scar, which ultimately is just a 0 for 4 go again. We have plenty of those. And Static Shock, which is a conditional 0 for 5 3 block. We have some of those. We just need to make room for Ironweave Dominion Flicker Wisp in order to win games that we cannot win without them, whereas there is no aggro mirror that we cannot win without Zap Clappers, Scar for a Scar, or Static Shock. So that's really it. Like I've said, Aurora is a known quantity at this point. This deck is nothing new, nothing groundbreaking, but it is a deck that I've had success with, and even in prior very minimally different iterations of this deck have had success with. This is our last weekend to play with Aurora. I've had a lot of fun with the hero. I think she's obviously very strong, but compared to a Phi or a KO, just the depth that Aurora has given me to play with and to hone my skills as a Flesh and Blood player will just set me up for future success with other heroes. I truly loved playing the deck. I thought she was very fun, very dynamic, very versatile, and I will miss her. I'll be sending her off this weekend with at least one ProQuest, if not 2, and hopefully can take that down. We'll let you know how that went next week. Speaking of other things that will happen next week, I will be playing a new hero. I'm juggling a few different options, trying to decide what I want to bring you for the roughly 3 weeks we have until High Seas spoilers start coming out again. As far as High Seas heroes that I want to play, Marlin is the top of my list. From everything I'm hearing online, she is going to be the new aggro deck, potentially the new Lexi. I never played Lexi when Lexi was a real hero, and I regret that. So, Go Wide Aggro is obviously, as you know, what I like to play. And if that Go Wide Aggro deck also happens to be very strong, more the better. But there's a chance that Puffin ends up being very good. More mech support means that maybe Dash Inventor Extraordinaire, or Dash IO, becomes very good, and that's a hero that I want to play. But the other class I'm looking at is Assassin. Arachne Slip Through the Cracks looks particularly appealing. I've never played an Assassin, but I do have my 9 codexes, courtesy of Matt McInnes, to prepare for Marlin, and I figured, well, if I have 3 weeks before we really know anything about which hero I might play in High Seas, then we could start working with the Assassin class. At the same time, I've heard really good things about Phi. Like I told you in my Battle-Hardened Santa Clara and this most recent ProQuest report, there were very good Phis in the room that put up very good records, and I think with some tuning that Phi could be a force in the meta. He does punish these very defensive aggro decks that also need to keep cards in hand. Something like Stack Florian really wants to be able to keep cards to activate Scepter of Pain, or pitch to play Channel the Millennium Tree and then Scepter of Pain. And Phi just says, I'm going to do 13 to 15 damage every turn until you're dead, until the game ends. And he's got Rake Over the Coals, which I've heard really good things about. He's got the Ignite, Searing Emberblade, Dragon Scalar Flight Path combo. So maybe I end up going with Phi. I'm not sure. We're all going to find out together next week. But this video is me not only giving you some tech to hopefully take down your ProQuest this weekend, but is also my farewell to the hero that I have enjoyed playing the most, that I have won with the most, and that has really helped me improve at Flesh and Blood the most out of any hero I've played, which is Aurora Shooting Star. So I know that there are a variety of opinions about her. She's been a tier A deck since her release, has only gotten better since the Aurora Armory deck, and people are sick to death of playing against her, but just as someone who really enjoyed playing her, I will miss Aurora. She is the first hero that I played for any significant amount of time that has hit Living Legend, and so this is my farewell to her. Aurora Shooting Star, if love could have saved you, you would have never died. So I will be back next week with more Daily Fab gameplay. Good luck this weekend. If you're playing at ProQuests, I hope to see you in Singapore. But until the next time I see you, take care.